topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Are you ready to take a journey? Let's connect with the healers of the world. It's that time. It's time for the Language of Healing on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Now here's your host, Emotional Wisdom Training Specialist Nicole Fortin.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the Language of Healing. Another great episode underway here. We're end of August, winding down from the summer here. And, you know, the summer season is so full of heat and warmth and fire and more joyful experiences, you know, getting outside and just feeling better in general. I know that for myself, you know, things just move better in the heat, a little warmth in the bloodstream and ease of mind. I mean, it can get out of balance, right? As we know, like too much heat and too much fire can create a little bit of chaos, restlessness. Well, we see it in nature, in the wildfires that have been quite enormous this year, and we see it regularly. It's a cycle. It's cyclical things. So, you know, we're coming into a new season here in the West. We're in Canada. I'm in Calgary, Alberta, and so these transitional periods or cyclical changes and how they affect us, and how we can utilize it more to our advantage. And today we're talking about the art of ecstatic living and loving. And to me, the word ecstatic means just pure happiness and joy. And I connect that with this fire element, this heat and joyful happiness. It is the emotion of the heart element, fire element in traditional Chinese medicine. We'll see that connection there. So joy and happiness. So seasonally it happens around the summer, but we actually have it running all the time, right? Being able to tap into that. Maybe it's a little bit easier in the summer because the vibes are, you know, relaxed and enjoyable. But, you know, when we turn into the winter, things are a little bit colder and more stuck and stagnant, and still having to keep that fire burning. And there's no better fire than this ecstatic, joyful, pleasurable desire that we have that resides within us. And this is my where I'm getting to with the point of the art of ecstatic living and loving. And we're going to talk with MaryFrances Barbisan, who is a master in her craft. She is a nurse turned sex coach, and she just exudes this pure juiciness and lusciousness for life. And she supports men and women in really tapping into that juicy lusciousness that will keep you you know, that real zest for life. That's that vitality that keeps you going. It is your reason for living and moving and, you know, connecting to that true purpose. So, well, let's connect with MaryFrances now. Let's welcome her to the show, The Language of Healing. Hello, MaryFrances.
Hello, Nicole.
Hi. Thanks for joining us today.
I'm just ecstatic.
Yeah.
Take this time together.
Yeah. So what is the art of ecstatic living and loving?
Sure. So first of all, the art. I believe all of life is art. It's an expression of all that we are. We are a genius masterpiece, and to be our genius self, we live life as art. and the art of our brain, our body, our brilliance. And so the art of full living, to be ecstatic, to be lit up, as you said, to be in that juice, joy, pleasure, dynamic, creative self, is the ecstatic life. And it has to do with wellness on all levels, body, mind, and spirit, and sexual. And so then we bring that back into the loving of life. So it's our living and how we do the world, and how we love ourselves, how we love the moment, the day, the smell, just being with our loved ones, and really allowing ourselves to be lit up with all of life's experience.
Yeah, because I mean, with the light comes some darkness too, right? The natural balance.
Absolutely. And I really loved how you were kind of giving the theme that we're just ending our summer here in Calgary and moving into winter, but we can still be appreciative of the light, like the sun and the moon, and the dynamic that goes on perpetually, whether it's summer or winter, but really using some tools of pleasure that can move us through and stay in that vitality. I mean, our energy, our life force energy, our sexual energy, and harvesting that as we go into the fall to sustain us into the winter, perhaps even the winter time of our life.
So what are some tools and practices? I know
you asked. There's a lot of mainstream self-care things. You can Google self-care and get ideas, but I'm not going to go there. That's not the potential I'm talking about. I think one of the key things that gets forgotten in a busy life is our sensory experience of that life. So I am also a sommelier, which means a wine expert, which taught me a piece that I bring into this, to the work around sexuality. And it's like, how do we look perhaps at a glass of wine, but on a bigger scope as a practice? How do we look at life? How do we look at the color of the sky? How do we really be in the sense of our eyes? And the senses of our smell is so lost as we, start harvesting our gardens, smelling the dirt, smelling our meal, our dinner, and really being in our body. And then the taste. I always say it's how you taste wine, perhaps is how you taste life, or how you taste your lover's kiss, and really being lit up in our senses. And then we can get into touch in that whole realm as well. But that's a key piece that we can use at any age, at any time, in any regard. And I think it's a key piece that gets forgotten when we're busy. We just scarf down some cheap food because we're on the road. We forget to take that pause, that beautiful, blissful pause. Is it a kiss? Is it a hug? But just to really an extra pause to notice and be present. And as we presence ourselves, we have ecstatic living. If we're not presencing ourselves, we're disappearing ourselves. And the joy and juice of life and the success of our desires and dreams kind of goes missing, and we're getting by and playing small.
Right. Oh, yeah. That's such, I know, that's such a good point, that playing small, you said that too, because to really tune into our senses and pay attention, there's a lot of abundance there. That's a really full space that.
And it's that exquisite moment of noticing, just to take that extra notice of coffee, percolating on the stove, just appreciating and noticing versus grabbing it and running out the door. And it's just that blissful moment. It's a conscious desire to slow down, even if it's a second, because you're getting out the door no slower by taking that moment. And that's the piece that I call ecstatic. And working with men and women about being exquisitely expressed as oneself, that's a first piece. And the second piece is nature. And we must be outside. We have to. We have to get our feet in the dirt or in the snow or our face to the sky, even if it's cold and it's just a moment. And that's the second piece to really being lit up in our life and presencing ourselves is that place of nature.
Yeah, I really like how your diversity of training really comes, supports. There's so many threads that feed into each other, like how you experience wine. or
Totally. And totally, it was just a curiosity, a hobby thing that really gave me such massive messages about, as an analogy, as a comparison. It could be a cup of tea. It doesn't matter.
right.
But that was it, because it's kind of a sexy art. And using that as part of my teachings when I'm doing a group sex coaching session, or some of the unfolding of that work, simply slowing down to enjoy a sip and then bringing that awareness into the deeper conversation has been absolutely transformative for my clients. You know, they walk away feeling lit up, connected, awake, going home, feeling life, feeling their relationships. And then with the other tools that we work in from a sexological perspective, putting it all together in that exquisiteness. So I guess
curious to know.
Sorry, go ahead.
So like, what is the sexiness of wine, and how does that relate into
anything
our own
sexual... anything and everything is sexy, I think. So it could be chocolate.
Right.
So I don't
hygiene is sexy.
Coffee or conversation in the sex part of life. It's so misunderstood because it's not an act. That's intercourse. Sex is an experience. It's the unfolding of all of you, and it's a place we go in pleasure. So to bring that awakening in our life, where today I hear all day long, women are tired out, worn out. Unfortunately, most are burnt out and often dried out. So when we've got that dynamic in our sexual life, and we're using these other tools to start, it's a beginning step into another realm of really waking up. Our sex energy is life force energy. It allows us to go into our creativity. We're harvesting energy, and we're actually leading us into the deeper awareness on a soul level of who we are.
And like all of those things are juicy and sexy. I agree.
Yeah. So it's not simply what I adorn myself with, or, whatever piece that, or wherever I am. That is, nature is sexy. Plants are sexy. They're living, they're colorful. They absorb the sunlight, which is very yang, which is very nourishing to the feminine and presencing for the masculine. And so it is this lit up awareness where no one has anywhere to go to talk about it. Your life coach, your fitness coach, your family doctor, no one talks to you about situations. And so I'll give you an example. I'm running into more and more individuals who are coming out of 30-year marriages. They haven't had sex in a decade. They haven't really been sexual since they were a teenager. And they're in the middle of life going, I don't know how to be a sexual person. I've lost contact with myself. How do I bring that back? Those are conversations not a lot of people can hold for you, unless, like myself, we're in a realm of that being our specialty.
And so where might someone start then? Where would they start?
Well, they would start by just checking in with their body, checking in with their surroundings, their senses. Like I said, get out in nature for a walk, and then give me a call and we'll see what are your goals. Like, are your goals to get back out dating? Is your goal to actually be lit up with more vitality? Is it to heal some surgeries that have diminished that experience for you? That's a whole realm. As a registered nurse of 37 years, I hold a lot of space for medications people are on, looking at the nutritional status, past surgeries, and all the things that are affecting someone from being sexual, and we're supposed to be until the end of our days, which is different as we age and change. And what is that capacity for our own pleasure? So that would be step 1, 2, and 3. and really, I believe it's really critical to what is an individual's desire. And simply it could be, I want to experience more pleasure in my life. I want to reconnect with my partner. Or I want to get a partner. So whatever an individual wants is really where I custom create that exquisite you program, where I work with somebody according to what they want. Not what I want, not what a book said that you have to do. It's where is someone now? And actually, it's where do you want to be? So many people are on that treadmill of stress, can't even look at, well, where would they like their sexuality or their relationship to be? So sometimes it's simply backing up the bus to go, wow, I'm missing out on some juice and joy here in life. Let's start there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is such a tailored experience and individual. And I really like that because you can connect in so many ways into that exquisiteness of life, like
Yes.
through doing the dishes or, even, I don't know, the mundane stuff, driving your
That's the
car
most
and,
fun, actually.
right?
It doesn't have to be this exquisite night out of roses and whatever
Yeah.
people do. It's the simple moments, and it's coming back home, back to ourself, our senses. Like, how does your guy smell if he's a little bit sweaty coming in from cutting the grass, and just noticing him and breathing him or her in is the simple things, but then to actually look at the other concerns and support that people need, because there's nowhere to go with these questions. I've got countless men clients that say, my doctor gave me a little blue pill. I don't want that. I want to actually wake up as a man in my body. And how do I build back that testosterone that got missed
Yeah.
being a stressed out, worn out, disconnected individual?
Well, so, what's interesting about that, because in Chinese medicine, we have basically we have three areas, three warmers, or, the bottom is, I relate it to the fire, like, flames, fire, wood burning fire. The middle section is the cauldron.
Mm.
That's like cooking the food. And then the upper portion is the steam that rises from that cooked food.
Ooh.
So,
I love
yeah. So we have enough fire, like to fuel the transformation of the food that we're taking in and then distribute it through our body. But so that lower dantian, or that lower portion, is really charged with this vitality, and it's the home of desire, home of communication, home of like movement, foundation, relationships with other people, just the power of
I
that.
love how you express that. I love the
Yeah.
word cauldron, because it's like,
I
that's the
know.
realm of magic. And what do we get to put in that cauldron? Right? All
Right.
that little witch inside of me that says, look, I can put a little dash of this and a dash of that, but that's what it's about. Your own personal recipe that we ignite and pull up through that fire as its cauldron is burning. I love that. I'm so picturesque in my mind, and it's a beautiful perspective. And I love that perspective you bring to this whole conversation through the acupuncture and the Chinese medicine. It's all a piece of this. And I know when we start lighting up now, we're putting in the ingredients into the cauldron, and then what's the next piece? Where is it that person really desires to be? Is it, I'm working a lot with women in business right now that are flat, boring, uninspired in their words and in their bodies, and wondering why then they go take another business course. And I'm coming in underneath, stoking the fires, having them build that cauldron. And all of a sudden, their ideas are, out into the galactic space. Their genius is getting ignited. We're stirring the pot together with support with somebody who has that vision for them and holds that vision true for them. And women in business are finding that's the spark. That's the piece that's been missing. And all the business courses in the world don't light me up the way just being real in my body does. And then going forward with other concepts. To me, it's a foundational piece. And the wellness as well, like from the nutritional, the body and the energy. And I can't speak your language about meridians and whatnot, but it all comes together as foundational as humans.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's what gives us our individuality and our uniqueness, our own song, our resonant.
That exquisite note, if you just think of a
exquisite
musical note,
note.
it's just like, ding, that's my note and only mine. And I find the more I'm on that fine edge of the wedge of the note, ding, that's truly my genuine genius self, I don't give a anymore. And when I don't give a, crap anymore about other people and what they think and what I should and shouldn't do and the culture and society and my age, oh God forbid my age. And if I just don't, the more I'm lit up in that orgasmic life and self, there's a greater flow, and people are magnetized to that creative life force energy.
Absolutely. Yeah, because, if your light is dim, say we're just even, taking this image of our inner fire desire.
Mhm.
You know, it's like what is stoked. If that's weak, you know, maybe we're looking outside for some sources of fuel or energy, right? Because we don't have enough of it inside of us. So we take, you know, the courses and I mean, it's good to educate yourself, right? Obviously.
We both are crazy for that.
I know, right? Student for life. I could just, but you know, there's at some point you have to take, and this is a very fire characteristic as well, take that inspiration, that knowledge that you're acquiring and turn it into something material, you know, and that could be in so many, like when it's material, I say it's experience. We're experiencing it in this reality. So that's the senses and really noticing that present moment of what you're experiencing. And
I think the result of energy in all the ways that we're describing it is matter. Like we have to create matter. Like I'm creating, you've created a show here, or creating an outcome, I guess is the right word. Otherwise, for me, I'm all stuck in my head and I haven't really gotten out of my own skin. And using this extra fuel of being in sexual energy, of being in our healing energy and being lit up is, we're not having enough of that conversation right now, especially in this world of stress where we're so inundated from the outside world. There's not enough information about being sovereign from the inside out and living true to ourselves, no matter what, for your individual self. And I don't care if someone's a grandma or grandpa or a young woman starting off a family and a whole bunch of us in between. It's a key piece of our language of healing. And it's a wonderful piece. And it's actually a real honor for me to share this sacred space with clients because I'm hearing the secrets that they don't have anyone to share with. And some of the shames and just being witnessed and heard and held is a piece of this whole journey as well.
Well, I'm thinking of this, you know, sexual energy and its connection to, say, Kundalini yoga. And what I know, or no, sorry, is it, tantric yoga. I'm sorry, tantric. But it's the awakening of the Kundalini that you're going for. But in this tantric method is something that is not like out of the extremes for people, but it's a fast track, right? So it's
ancient.
Like
These are ancient philosophies like your work. This is all based on ancient information, wisdom, and tradition.
Yeah, which all comes to how do we, you know, live long and happy life. I would say that's the foundational
and I'm
drive for
make love with yourself or your other every single day.
Yeah, I mean, and that's
that point.
Right. Yeah, but to really know yourself and experience it, and that's what these practices are designed for, to really maximize your full potential of that energy that you can cultivate, harness, and, you know, in some ways manipulate. Once you master the foundational pieces, you can play with it a little bit more. And this is the key to living more ecstatic present life.
and the more we stoke the fires and stir the cauldron with our own magic, because what happens is our own creativity starts to download, going, oh my gosh, there's so many more ideas and we're moving that through the world. I mean, the possibilities are endless to hold that space for truly being lit up all day long.
I like how you say holding that space, because if we think of the fire that's not contained, it just spreads. That it needs a container, and that's very masculine energy, right? The container, the holding the space for the yin feminine energy to flow, that creativity is also very fire related, connected to that. But again, it's turning that fire, creative energy, inspiration into something material that we can like physically experience.
So we can make matter out of what matters.
Right. Oh, I love that.
What matters to each person is completely different. Like my, thumbprint on my computer when I turn it on, it's so unique. And to tap into that space, to work with someone like yourself and myself in guiding that journey, because I'm telling you, I didn't learn it growing up. My family didn't teach that to me. My mom wouldn't have known to have this conversation with me. School didn't. So where are we learning this unless it's by divine curiosity and reason for being, like we both do? And then sharing that in the world is a really key piece.
Or it's not spoken of ever. It just becomes repressed and not supported, like, not a safe environment to really share that.
What I found is all my years of being a registered nurse, and then I became a massage therapist over 2 decades ago, dealing with the energy capacity, like just to feel your own self and to teach people, like you're a field, like you're a field of pizzazz. So like, let's get that going. But in the body work and all of the sorts of things I would do in a session, I see more women than men, but either one would start asking me these private questions. And I think that was my fuel to really serve humanity in a greater way. There were, in the privacy of a sacred space, they're feeling open, seen, they're, in this, a massage is really personal, at least in my world, and how that space is created for that other person's healing and desire. So the questions were coming in. And so I just want to share that was the piece that ignited me, was there's some greater information that I can hold that space for, both in my masculine and feminine, for ultimately the healing of what others desire and how to get there.
So how did you come to, okay, so you saw it from your client's perspective, but you must have had some experience or some, openness, something that attracted people to be able to talk to you about this.
Oh, so yes. And I'll say it's my heart. My heart is I don't know, it's out there in the galactic space. And my whole life, even as a babysitter when I was a teenager, I felt like the proverbial bartender where people would tell me their stories. And I've been witness to stories all my life. And many times, just many, many times, holding stories, holding people's journeys tender in my heart, knowing there's a way out. So how can I be that hand and say there is a way out of what your concern or your struggle is? And it just kept evolving from recognizing it was from my heart. My heart is connected all the way out to my hands. So that's where the body work came in. I was also a classical pianist as a youngster, and I knew the notes and tones. That's why I use some of those words of harmony, disharmony, and knowing that the body or the spinal cord had its each note. I almost felt like I was playing music on people. And then again, that held another vibration for an individual to start opening up and feeling like they could share more. And as my clients got older over the last couple of decades, their needs were different and the conversations shifted. And my endless curiosity to serve has just been, that desire has been the fuel. And when we tap into what our desire is, it's the fuel that keeps us going in the way we contribute in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is the fuel that keeps us going, that desire. I like that. And I'm still very drawn to this sacred space that is within the, let's see, even like the reproductive organs, because that's, all things sexual. But I think that there's also the connection to the heart.
100%.
Yeah. And connection to everything, of course, but and then also the mind. So, it's just really,
we are one connected being.
Yeah.
The bubble of beingness. The bubble.
Yes.
Of
And what is a little bit, kind of the sadness of, or it's disadvantageous, I guess, to not talk about this kind of stuff freely and openly, because it's such an integral part of our body system, and to not address it.
And when people are feeling,
we see that it gets worse and worse.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We got itchy, witchy, bitchy people out there in the world. You can hear it now on social media, people freaking out, like all that bitchiness is an underexpressed body. Say that politely.
Yeah. Okay. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. The underfucked body is not by yourself, with your partner, with whatever the beingness that moves the energy through you, isn't flowing. There's all these stuck, disconnected spots, and there isn't that flow. in the body, in movement, in words, in living, in breath. And we've got the whole world's yelling at each other and polarized instead of loving and appreciating. And so the sexual energy is just one way of opening up all our channels from the heavens to the earth to be divinely connected. And I really believe some of the issues with that going on inside ourselves at times, or you go to your doctor and you say, I'm just so angry, but it turns the other way into depression and you get a pill. And this planet does not have an antidepressant deficiency. It has a sexual deficiency.
Right. Yes. Well, I mean, it does stimulate energy. It creates flow, right? And that's a basic principle of any illness or discomfort is stuck energy. So anything you can do to get that moving.
Yes, and it's another deeper level. I could say I can get moving by singing, getting a yoga class, for example. There's a certain way, but there's this other piece. So why don't we use all our God-given bits and pieces for the expression of who we are, not just I'm going to do a yoga class and a walk in the park and all the great things that are all important to do. I'm not saying don't ever not do those things, but let's add this other awareness in. And our own pleasure is just this smile. It's just this eternal smile from the inside out, where I think peace on earth and joy in it starts in ourselves and our families is coming from the pleasure of what is innately ours.
Yes.
And I grew up in an era where it was shame-based, like don't do that and don't even think that. And there's no place for that. And so that was another trigger for my curiosity. It's like, well, why? Because as soon as you say don't do something, I'm going to go do it and figure out what was the big secret there. And so in this generation of my middle of lifeness and a lot of people I work with, we're coming from that background and not ever being given permission. So I'm going to say today, I give every individual permission to be fully expressed, whatever that looks like to you. Of course, without harm to others, but wherever you are in the spectrum of your identification sexually, it doesn't matter. It's the permission granted to be lit up and enjoying can you hear me okay? It's the desire to be lit up in pleasure. And that is the missing piece. I'm going to offer a suggestion, and it's so easy for people in the day-to-day world, especially for us women. If you've noticed, everything is this way. So we're driving our cars, we're on our computers, we're trying to read and talk at the same time. We're in this mode all the time. And stress is this way. We're actually taking our heart center. We're actually bringing a hug around our own heart when it's really being able to be open. And so what I suggest every single day, as many times as possible, you lean back. I never do an interview unless I'm leaning back and laying down, because that's where I feel my feminine flow and my energy versus this sense of struggle and get her doneness that our whole day, if we're on a computer and driving our lives, then we've lost where it's an element of disconnect of the modern world. So that's a simple thing. Lean back. It's not a yoga class right now, but I feel like I'm doing yoga right now in my essence, in the genius of my expression, and leaning back. I also have a nice little fuzzy thing there that's nice and cozy, and the senses of what I touch in, I believe, in art and living greenery. So in the laying back is a simple tip we can do every single day, anywhere we want. We can be in our cars, going through traffic, chasing deadlines, and then taking that moment, even put the seat back just for a moment and recenter. And that's a really, really easy, simple tip to do any time of the day. Yoga practices are great for the heart opening, but we're not in yoga class all day. We're more doing this and this more often. And so it's just kind of a reverse awareness. And I can presence myself instantly. So I'm going to suggest to anyone out there that take some of your time, lay back, and just feel the difference in your body and the pleasure of that to reverse this I call it man mode, ladies. This is man mode. And then we go home in greater man mode than our man and wonder why there's a disconnect somewhere else. So it's just a simple flip of the switch with the body mechanics to start. It's the beginning of dismantling the dreaded man mode, which is really dismantling a lot of women. And they're telling me I can't get a guy. And I'm like, well, stop being more in man mode. Take a moment, drop it down so he can be, and you can be in that polarity, because that's another place of our life force energy, is experiencing the polarity of the dynamic between your partner and yourself.
Yeah, that's a big piece, the polarity. And that's how we meet each other, through like creating that tension or that stretch that then can come into this dance, right? I know that's a little like,
it's the dance of life. It's like if every moment the universe was birthing, like in exploding and living that, it's actually not tiring. It's more tiring to be sluggish and depressed and sitting like this in chairs and in, those nice comfort seats and fancy cars. You're actually being pulled in. And so I'm going to suggest we pull open, and that every moment we can pull in more of that extraordinary aspect of what living's all about.
So I like that you bring up the masculine and feminine energies, because we do say, okay, as women, as a woman living in society and playing along, it's typically a more active masculine energy that contains our day, right? Get all of this done, work hard, like stand up for yourself. Like there's kind of this like hardness, maybe like corporate world is a little, it has that masculine energy. So, but how do we as women really come into that more feminine energy?
Right.
I think that it's something that's, again, not as discussed. And then we pick up bits and pieces of information from elsewhere without really fully understanding how we live in these polarities, right? To recognize when you're in the masculine or feminine or neutral, even stuck.
Exactly. And so whether you're a feminine man or a masculine woman, it's an energy, as you said, it's a polarity. And it's, if you want to have that polarity, that's attraction, that's like dynamic energy building. And it is coming from, if I'm going to be in man mode. And so the first step is like, okay, I'm dismantling my man mode of get her done all day long. So if you're in a world where you have to get her done all day long, then taking one thing, literally, it's not that brilliant. And it's just that simple moment of changing the dynamic. But to start recognizing in your day, if you truly desire the polarity, if you want that dynamic with your loved one and you want him to show up or her to surrender to the relationship, then we must be aware of that dynamic. And I really believe that if you're going to start noticing when you're in man mode, and if a woman says it's all damn day long, then we have to look at, well, what is not man mode then? And using that as some inspiration. And usually it's our pleasure. It's our sensuous pleasure. It's all of those bits and pieces. And it doesn't mean putting on the lip gloss. I'm talking about another level of what really dismantles man mode for a woman. For me, I can't be in man mode laying on my couch right now talking to you.
Right.
The window and the air and the sky. So whatever, that's me. And so sometimes movement through music, I find also very triggering to get me back home in my body versus this get her done state of mind that I have to be in to get her done. Without
and the feminine
myself, like right now, middle-aged women hormones, well, even men Testosterone's down, hormones are sideways, and to bring in those happy hormones, those endorphins, is the piece of recognizing where and how that comes in. So if you hate classical music, I don't suggest it, but I love it. I was a classical pianist, so I'll use that as a piece for my individuality to start shifting that into the pleasure, where those hormonal changes in the brain affect the body, and then we're having a different reality at the end of our get her done day. You know, when someone would say, I hate bubble bath, well, then don't take a bubble bath. What is it? I love, again, we'll go back to the senses. Smells are beautiful for a trigger. Like for me, lavender at the end of the evening is just so triggering of pleasure. So these are all the languages. I love this show here, Nicole, the language of healing, because there's so many pieces to it.
Right. Yeah. And yes, I love visiting like the extremes, right? Like it's like a broad spectrum. You know, and we speak about tones and notes and music. There was a comment we had here from Rachel about music. Music is my trigger for an emotional and physical transition. I can totally relate to that, you know, like when you really need to switch modes and
if you're inspired to then move with it, however that is, that's the exquisite you that I work together with women individually. There won't be any retreats in Mexico as there has been for the last 8 years. Unfortunately, that's just not a place I'll go right now. But the exquisite you, I'm going to offer an invitation to any of our listeners to reach out and connect and have a conversation. That exquisite you is waiting. It's there. It's like the exquisite you, and just like claiming it. And I'm here to serve that journey.
Yeah. So do you have some resources? They can find you at MaryFrances.ca.
MaryFrances.ca. There's places, you know, there's a way to contact me through there, and that's probably the simplest. Giving out all kinds of email addresses and whatnot. That's the simplest place. Always available to book in, you know, some time together, just a complimentary check-in, just to see if there's a place that your life can be served to be more open, more flowing, more creative, and tapping into the things that maybe innately you know will put a different spin on it and really create that luscious life that is your top note.
Yeah, right. There was a little blurb I was listening to about Ella Fitzgerald recently, and how she was filming this commercial, and her note just broke the glass, like shattered the glass.
That just gives me goosebumps. Yeah.
You know, glass shattering note of our exquisiteness, because it can have that much potential. And imagine you could harness that, cultivate that, utilize that to get more of what you want. And I think
that's it. That's the essence. That's it. You got it. That's it. We don't have to necessarily sing to get that note, and that's the point. Other things can sing, if you know what I mean, to get that note. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's just utilizing all of our senses, and we are, you know, this pleasure sense receiving, materializing system. We have so many functions.
Innate God or goddess given bodies. The feminine body has a body part that doesn't get cancer. Did you know that? There's this one little body part that carries 8,000 nerve endings given for the only pleasure. There's no function except for pleasure. And if we are built as humans to have that in our body, it is there for us to claim and to use for the purpose of our lives.
Right. Because that,
but did anyone,
we're talking about the clitoris. Is that what? Yeah.
And
okay.
It's about clitoracy. So I teach a course on clitoracy so that we can understand that this pleasure part of us needs to, every body part has a function and a need to be used. So it needs to be understood as the vortex that takes us deeper into our awareness and our bodies. It's there for a reason.
I love how your website associates stress as tangled energy. It gives hope that we have the ability to untangle it. Yes, I love that.
Thank you, Rachel. That's awesome. Yeah, 100%. We can get tangled up in this world, like, you know, Christmas lights. Does anyone know how to untangle Christmas lights or just throw them away? And right now we are throwing ourselves literally into low but we can untangle it, and there is a way out. And I'm the guide that walks people through that journey.
Mm-hmm. Because then it's also like that the channel of that sexual energy is so strong and potent that it can untangle more. I really believe like more, yeah.
Yes.
Like tantric yoga, you know, that's what it's designed for. It's like a highway speed channel towards.
It's there. It's given to
opening
us
up flow.
100%.
Great.
It's one more channel. Like you might talk about the acupuncture point. Well, there's this other point, and it's for our own pleasure, and it doesn't need anyone else. And it's not vulgar. It's not taken. It's shared only if you give permission. And it's a place for our own evolution, our own self-awareness. And that's the journey.
Yeah, I love that. You know,
we're holding little doors closed. So to be completely authentic, I believe, you've got all these little closed compartments. I mean, I had a lady once say, "What do you do for a living?" And I just, "I'm a sex coach." And she said, "Oh God, who'd ever need that? Because who'd ever want to go there?" And I'm like, and she was a speaker on stage that came to say hi to me. And I'm like, if you've got little compartments that haven't been fully actualized, it's showing up in how the world receives you, the things that you say. And it was quite an enlightening conversation where a total stranger is sharing things, and it made me sad. It really made me sad that I had to hear. And there's so many more things to talk about.
I'm sure you've had quite the experience working in the industry and being able to support people. You hear a variety of things, and it's because we'll come up against like the belief systems that, I mean, we touched about this a little bit earlier, but I'm sure that that's a big block for people. It's not huge. Just physical part, but it's the stigma or the taboo.
Yeah. And, you know, a guy who's sexual is a stud and a woman's a slut. And I'm like, that's a generation I grew up on. And I'm like, ooh, we're going to dismantle all of that. We're going to use this divine body as a tool of healing and energy, and really understand the magic of being fully sexualized, in our sexual energy, for the greatest contribution, how we show up on the stage of life. And the woman then proceeded to tell me that she could never have sex because she leaks urine. And women now, over half the women out there are leaking urine in middle age, which is also like non-exercised internal body parts. This is not okay. This is absolutely not okay. And I didn't grow up to grow old to be leaking. It is not sexy, and it's not comfortable. And this is what's happening to half middle-aged women. So I'm here on another mission too, is to really get our bodies strong from the inside out, so we don't have this kind of shameful, embarrassing moments. That's just a whole other topic. That's more my nurse topic about another level of wellness for us.
Well, and from Chinese medicine, it relates to, like, if we don't have enough of that fire or that stoke that's transforming what we're putting into our body, it's just leaking. You know, it's unused stuff, right? The body doesn't actually process it. So if we can digest and process.
Like, what if we were drooling every time we laughed? I mean, that would be horrible. Like, you would just be like never showing your face if you were drooling, right?
Right.
So these lips and those lips, what these lips are not saying, these lips are not saying. There is a relationship here. Okay, that's a whole other show. But the point is that there's so much general health and wellness that is promoted being in our bodies fully and fully expressed.
Wonderful, MaryFrances. Well, we'll have to bring you back, continue the conversation, because there is, you are really coming from a diverse background, and you've experienced a lot, and you've supported many people over the decades. So you said 37 years as a RN.
Yeah,
so
21 doing the body work, and these hands have been on thousands of bodies that taught me what is going on in the field of how we're expressed. And so taking all of that wisdom into a way to be in the world for others is what's lighting me up, so that I can help light up others. And I just feel grateful that I can create that safe place for conversation and inspiration for all people.
Well, you are definitely one of my favorite people to get into all sorts of topics with, and you're so approachable. And I encourage any of our listeners or people watching today to contact Mary Frances at maryfrances.ca and just drop her a line, have a conversation, have conversations about your sexual health, and don't be afraid to approach any health professionals or your friends, or just get the conversation started as well, because there's a lot of untapped potential in there. So we'll continue the conversation next time. Tune in next week on the language of healing. And for today, what will you take with you from this conversation that will support you for the rest of your life? Thank you.
That's awesome. Thanks, Nicole.
Bye.
Wow, what a show today, and the journey does not stop here. Come travel the world with Nicole every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time as together we become more fluent in the language of healing on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV. See you next week.